All right, we're back at Ontario Grower Supply again. Myself, Tom. This is Dan. We're going to talk a little bit about a timely topic, and that's drying and curing. So we're getting into the time of year for the outdoor people. They're going to harvest in the next month, and where a lot of cannabis can go wrong or be spoiled is in the drying and curing stage. So what a shame. People spend all spring and summer growing these plants, really good genetics, spend a lot of money on food, all the time watering, especially during the drought, and then it gets screwed up in the handling and the processing. So there's a few different methods that work well. We're going to talk about some simple ways that are effective to give you some good quality cannabis. So it's not only the strength of the cannabis, but also the smell, the odor, and the terpene profile, the flavors that can be influenced by how well we dry and cure our product. So when we get to that point of cutting the plants down, we want to cut all the big fan leaves off, cut it into 2-foot sections, and then use a drying rack or hang them. But these things are economical and work really well. So for a small amount of square footage, you can do 6 to 8 layers worth of product. It works really well. So we're going to leave that in a room that's low temperature, 19 to 21 degrees. We don't want it too hot. We don't want a lot of breeze in there. And we want a good average humidity. So again, we don't want it too dry or too moist in the area where you're going to dry your cannabis. You want a good half decent air exchange as well, and you want it in a dark area. Light can really hurt terpenes and trichomes. So again, a nice dark area. Don't go crazy on the heat. Have good air exchange. We want to prevent mold from growing. We want to ideally get rid of the green or hay taste that we often see in cannabis. So it's best done if we do that low temperature and at a slow rate. So longer drying and curing period is far preferred to a quick, fast and flashy kind of drying method. So you don't want to be heating it up, you don't want to be microwaving it, etc., etc. So we're going to have it in here for 2 weeks. Sometimes people will move it in and out of the drying racks, not necessary, just to slow down the amount of moisture that's lost. After 2 weeks, you're going to cut your flowers and buds into smaller sections. Often people will use a trim bin similar to this. So not only help you collect all your material, but will collect some of the trichomes that fall through into the bottom tray to be used in other processes. A good clean pair of scissors works well too. Using isopropyl alcohol will help keep them clean. So at that point, we're going to be 7 to 10 days, maybe even longer at that point before it has a good, still a little bit of moisture, but almost ready to be used. But the best cannabis still goes through an extensive curing process, and Dan's going to talk about that.
So after your cannabis has been hanging or drying in these racks for about 7 days to 10 days, or even longer depending on the strains, what I like to do is I like to trim them up in this trim bin after, and then put them in mason jars. So what I'll do is I'll load up, not too full, just right about to the edge right there of cannabis, and then I will seal it. And then I will burp it once a day for about 7 days. And then I'll incorporate these boost humidity packs in there that'll keep the humidity ideal to 62%, so nothing will mold on you, and you'll have the best tasting product.
So these are a two-way humidity pack, so if it's a little too dry or a little too wet still, it'll regulate it to 62.
62%, yeah.
A lot of people back in the day would use potato pieces or a piece of apple.
Apples were great.
And infuse a bit of a flavor, but this is just a foolproof way of doing it. It's safe, it's not going to mold over.
Mm-hmm.
Just gives it a good, slow, even rate. So what's the advantage of burping it? I guess just to get rid of the off gases?
Yeah, off gases and the old air, the old still air, and you get new air in there, fresh air, right? So you just let the product breathe for about 15 to 25 minutes for the first week, once a day. That's what I personally do. And then
so how many weeks do we do the curing?
Ideally, you want to cure for about a month to 6 months. You can go even to about a year. Ideally, the best is 6 months. A 6-month cure will get rid of all the chlorophyll, taste, and that hay smell that Tom was previously talking about.
Cool. Is there any other thoughts on the last few weeks of flowering? So some people still have plants in the ground. What's the best thing they can do to guarantee a good outcome of their crop?
So essentially, here in Canada, if you're outside, you want to keep your plant, if you can, out of the rain in October, since the weather is not so good here for growing cannabis. So if you can, keep it out of the rain and keep your buds as dry as possible, and out of the frost as well. Once the frost comes, either bring your plants close to your house if they're in pots, or cover them with some sort of landscape cloth at night if it goes below 0, to just give them an extra couple of degrees buffer, so they don't freeze to death, essentially.
Cool. Another important tool before we harvest is a microscope to check the trichome development. I think a lot of people pick their product early because they, seeing with the human eye, they see the hairs or the trichomes turning red, or a lot of the leaves dying off, and they see that as a signal that it's ready to be harvested. But they might be a week or two premature on that. So using a good quality microscope, that'll tell you that the trichomes have turned, which basically means the trichomes are going from a translucent or clear color to more of a milky or amber color.
And the more amber, the more of a couch lock effect it will have. So if you go 30% amber, then it's going to be a lot more couch lock effect than if you went to 15% amber or something along those lines. So
yeah, be more of a uplifting. Experience. So overall, the key is slow patience and persistence and paying attention. So especially when you get your product into these jars, just don't neglect them. You actually have to burp them every day, and then you'll have that good quality product.